During the 21st century, the entirety of the human population was taken over by a dominating, multidimensional alien empire with a brutal mission to enslave all sentient life in the multiverse. As they had done to many civilizations before encountering planet Earth, the Combine forced their rules on humanity and demanded submission in return for their lives. As history has shown across Earth, when a sudden, unwanted rise to power dominates those below it, a resistance will always form to overthrow the new leaders. During the Combine invasion and fight to consolidate power, a resistance did form, just like it would with any other situation. With people hidden all across the planet working together for one goal, the Combine would surely have to truly understand the complexity of humanity's natural instinct to survive. How did this movement against the Combine form? Who are its key members? And how will this fight for freedom end? Here we explore, in the lore behind, the Resistance. On May 16th of the early 2000s, a resonance cascade occurred after the scientists at the Black Mesa Research Facility had attempted to learn more about the border world of Xen through the study of their crystals. This cascade had ripped a hole in space, forming a link between planet Earth and the border world of Xen that they had been exploring. With this breach, the flora and fauna of the hostile border world flooded into the Black Mesa Research Facility, resulting in many of the members within becoming prey to not only the alien lifeforms, but also to the human cleanup crews that had been sent here to silence all witnesses to this catastrophe. This disaster had resulted in a lot of death, but one hero came through to stop the resonance cascade and defeated the Nylanth, holding the bridge open between Earth and Xen. Ultimately, only a few lucky personnel survived this disaster, but their true nightmare was just about to begin. Through the multiverse, the Combine, an interdimensional alien empire, had been jumping from universe to universe, enslaving the sentient species they had come across. With these species, they would experiment with and adapt the physiology of the poor lifeforms into useful additions to their armies. These adaptations ranged from frontline soldiers all the way up to vehicles to be used in whatever endeavor the Combine deemed necessary. While the resonance cascade had indeed been stopped after Gordon Freeman's fight with the Nylanth on Xen, the aftermath of this whole event had alerted the Combine of Earth's presence, and with it, humanity. With a full army created solely to conquer vast civilizations, the Combine set upon Earth, where they easily defeated Earth's armies in a mere 7 hours. At this hour, the Black Mesa's ex-administrator, Dr. Wallace Breen, had discovered a way to communicate with the dominating empire. With permission from Earth's governments, Wallace accepted defeat on behalf of humanity and accepted servitude under the Combine Empire. While the majority of humanity followed in Dr. Wallace Breen's steps in bowing down to their new rulers, the more resilient and resistant members of humanity stepped away from the main streets of their respective cities and refused to accept the future they had been given. Due to the war between Black Mesa and Xen, the Vortigaunt species had been introduced to planet Earth. Now free from the control of the Nylanth, the Vortigaunt made Earth their home and coexisted peacefully with the humans. As the Combine began to make their adjustments to the planet and the inhabitants within, groups of people across the world met up together in secret to collectively create a plan to remove the Combine from their world. These people, having once been those that had power in law enforcement, outlaws, and strong-willed fighters, all they needed were strong leaders to create a course for the movement to become effective. While many had died during the Black Mesa incident, the few survivors that had escaped the horrors of not only humanity but the alien forces, they made their way into the population. As the Combine had at this point created settlements across the planet to house their newly acquired species, the survivors of Black Mesa believed that they had already survived one atrocity, and they would do it again, and with this, the Resistance was truly born. With the humans now having developed a strong relationship with the once enslaved Vortigaunt species, these strong-willed members gravitated together to fight something much bigger than themselves. Within City 17, one of the Combine's major settlements, the leaders of the resistance began to settle their roots and created bases. Dr. Eli Vance, one of the few survivors of Black Mesa, took it upon himself to gather the members he could find to sabotage the activities of the Combine. With these actions, he and his people could gather information about the alien empire and become stronger. Over the years since the invasion, working in secret, he had trained up his daughter, Alex, to aid him in these endeavors. With their infiltrations, the Resistance were able to acquire advanced weaponry, technology, and information from the Combine. With the technology to survive, Eli moved to the canals just outside of City 17, where he formed Black Mesa East. Here, he could work in secret, just under the noses of the Combine. During his time at the Resistance base, Judith Mossman joined the Resistance. Judith had been an extremely promising and upcoming scientist during Earth's period of freedom, where she had even applied for a position at the Black Mesa Research Facility. But, unfortunately, Gordon Freeman's qualifications and a recommendation from Isaac Kleiner had landed him the position instead. Within, Judith had the perfect skills to aid Eli in his research. While Eli and Judith dived into research techniques to remove the Combine from the planet, his friend, Dr. Isaac Kleiner, had set up another resistance base within City 17, and here, he also researched methods of removing the Combine, only here, he was closer to the action. Although working in such a close proximity to some would appear as a dangerous idea, the Resistance had managed to train up some of their members to join the Civil Protection as spies. With this, Barney Calhoun, an ex-security guard and survivor of Black Mesa, had infiltrated the Civil Protection, human volunteers that had joined the Combine in return for benefits such as additional food rations and better living conditions. As Barney had access to the inside information of Civil Protection raids, information gathered from interrogations of those that had opposed the Combine, general movements, and plans of the alien empire, he was able to relay this information onto Isaac, where it would then circulate across the Resistance. With this information, Isaac could avoid the Civil Protection raids and continue to work in secret. With both Eli and Isaac working around the City 17 region, Dr. Arne Magnusson had taken over an old Cold War base that the Black Mesa facility had purchased years back with the plan to conduct some of their experiments. Due to the incident, this plot of land had simply been left abandoned. Located within the Outlands, outside of Combine awareness, Arne had believed this to be the perfect place to set up a base. With a handful of Resistance members, the group had gotten to work to make the base livable. As the location was completely self-sufficient, with generators to sustain the power within, and therefore reduce any risk that would come from leaving the base to acquire resources, the members of the now-named White Forest Resistance Base could work on methods to remove the Combine from planet Earth in secret. As this base had multiple silos that could house rockets, Arne Magnusson and his team researched super portal technology, which the Combine had used to conquer the planet in merely 7 hours during their invasion. If they could find a way to manipulate the portals that the Combine created, they could put up a fighting chance in the event that another war occurred. With every revolution, there needs to be a symbol, and with this, the Resistance leaders had chosen the perfect one. As the leaders of the movement consisted of survivors of the Black Mesa incident, these members all shared a common hero, Dr. Gordon Freeman. During the incident, Gordon had fought through the facility, saving as many Black Mesa personnel as he could. Along his journey, he had worn a suit with the Lambda sign imprinted onto it. To some, this logo would simply be taken at face value as a letter in the Greek alphabet, but to the survivors, it represented the positive actions of Gordon Freeman and his sacrifice to save the facility after his disappearance when entering a portal in the Lambda complex. Although he had disappeared without a trace, the link between Earth and Xen had broken, and with this, the scientists and personnel knew that Gordon had been successful in his task on Xen. His strong will to survive against the odds and his other actions had many meanings to the various people that heard of his story, and so, the Resistance adopted the Lambda sign as their own. With this symbol, members of the Resistance began to spray paint it across the Wasteland for other Resistance members in need. The logo would also appear within the vicinity of Resistance bases to alert the local members, and it was also sprayed on the clothing, adapted weaponry, and technology of the movement. For the most part, this symbol allowed other members of the Resistance to be aware of one another, but there were also other members that chose to spray the logo within heavily occupied Combine regions, such as City 17, to give hope to those trapped within. A secret message to let them know that although the Resistance were hiding in the shadows, they were still making coordinated strikes. This was not only a symbol of the existence and activity of the Resistance, but also a symbol of hope. While the Combine had indeed conquered planet Earth after arriving, they had struggled to maintain and control the various other alien lifeforms that had come through to Earth during the portal storms. With this, the coastal regions around City 17 were deemed to be too dangerous for the Combine forces, and so, with a whole region having minimal Combine presence, the Resistance had the opportunity to construct various locations across the Wasteland. With Resistance bases dedicated to research placed within City 17 and the Outlands, the Resistance set up bases across the Wasteland to focus on the combat side. With no central location for the Resistance headquarters, each major settlement had its own agendas and areas of focus to aid in the overall goal. With the coastal regions safer for Resistance activity, the bases were set up in order to create a network of safe locations for the Resistance members that travelled around the Wasteland. Some of these bases being New Little Odessa, run by Colonel Odessa Cubbage, Bridge Point, Shore Point Base, and the Lighthouse Point. Over these years of slowly building up their locations across the Wasteland, the Resistance was slowly becoming stronger each day, with new recruits joining to house them. While this was a good thing for the Resistance, their increased numbers and expanded base locations also brought some of their activities to the attention of the Combine. With the Combine now aware of them, the Wasteland began to become more closely monitored by the Combine, and with it, the Resistance bases discovered by the Sinister Force would engage in open combat with the armed members of the Resistance. In some cases, the Resistance held their ground, while in others, the Combine would take over the locations and adapt it to their needs. With a strong operation running and with various bases scattered across the Wasteland with the one goal to save planet Earth from the Combine, the main bulk of the Resistance worked mostly underground to undermine and infiltrate the Combine forces. With this, they used the underground tunnels of City 17 to navigate the Wasteland and its bases, and also to help trapped civilians escape Combine-occupied regions where they could join the Resistance. Throughout the Wasteland, the Resistance would hide supply caches in the event that a member of their movement would need them in their time of need. With many members saved from City 17 and its surrounding areas, the Resistance base of Black Mesa East, run by Dr. Eli Vance, deemed it worthwhile to adapt the local mining town of Ravenholm into a Resistance base to house the many new members they had acquired. Here, they could store the weaponry they had smuggled from the Combine, as well as the other various stolen pieces of technology they had acquired. As a way to boost their numbers and aid the human population trapped under the control of the Combine, the Resistance had constructed a secret route out of City 17 that led to the secure Resistance locations. They called this the Underground Railroad. Moving from the heart of City 17 to the canals just outside of the major Combine settlement, the Underground Railroad consisted of multiple secret Resistance safe houses, which the members that ran them named them by station. Within each station, they had supplies to aid their visitors passing through, and a radio to contact not only the other members of the railroad, but the other major Resistance settlements too. Using this, they could securely transport a refugee seeking asylum from the Combine in an orderly and safe manner. It appears that the Underground Railroad and its stations had begun construction from the canals into the city due to Station 6 being closer to the canals, while Station 12 hid itself within City 17, with each station marking as a secure checkpoint for any escaping the Combine. The system worked efficiently to safely extract refugees from City 17 outwards to the safety of the Resistance. On this route out of the city, Evacuees were said to have mentioned they travelled from Station 12, which they regarded as the largest and possibly main station, through to Station 9, 8, 7, and then 6. While there is no mention of Stations 1 to 5, 10, and 11, it is most likely that they have been overrun by the Combine after their discovery. With the perfect way to help the human population escape, and now new members to help in their fight, the Resistance continue to train for the inevitable upcoming fight against their oppressors. In preparation for this fight, they would need the best technology and weaponry they could find. With no way to mass-produce weaponry for a potential brutal war, the Resistance had to scavenge the Wasteland for weapons, ammunition, and armor to arm the front line. With this, the Resistance took what they could from the Combine troops that they were able to beat in battle. With this, they acquired mostly the Metro Cop uniform as a form of protection. Now with armor that would help protect them in future confrontations, the Resistance sprayed the Lambda sign on their new clothing as a symbol of the Resistance. In terms of acquiring weaponry, the soldiers were able to add to the arsenal in two different ways. The first, by searching for the weaponry scattered across the Wasteland from the dead of humanity that had fought against the Combine, as well as the human weaponry left in safe spaces in the region. The Resistance were able to acquire mostly MP7s, as well as a vast selection of other human weaponry. The second way the Resistance were able to access weapons was to steal Combine-made weaponry from the Combine armories, or from taking them from the dead soldiers they had come across in battle. With discovering new weapons every day on scouting missions across the Wasteland, the handy members of the Resistance were also able to repair old Earth machinery, allowing them to travel across the land with ease. Here, cars were fixed up and even an airboat was constructed in an attempt to make the travelling of the canals safer. Within many of the Resistance bases across the Wasteland, the Resistance had brought in the now free Vortigaunt species to aid them in their effort. As willing participants to the movement, the Vortigaunt's natural abilities proved to be invaluable to the fight, as the Vortigaunts had the ability to communicate with other members of their species using the Vortessence. They could acquire information from the trapped Vortigaunt within the prisons across the planet. Alongside this, the Vortigaunts had also proven to be extremely intelligent, where some worked along the Resistance leaders, one of which was Uriah in White Forest, who had acquired a level 9 security clearance of the facility and worked as Arndt's assistant. With some helping the scientists and others acquiring information for the Resistance, there were other Vortigaunts within the secret bases across the Wasteland that fought on the front line with the soldiers of the Resistance, where they were able to tap into the Vortessence to shoot powerful green lightning at their foes, killing them with ease. While these abilities were extremely useful to the Resistance on the surface, it is said that there were other Vortigaunts over the Wasteland with even more advanced abilities, one of them being able to heal somebody close to the brink of death, something that the Resistance would find useful during the Uprising. In Black Mesa East, Dr. Eli Vance had been experimenting with creating a new type of instrument that had the ability to manipulate the gravitational field around it. This piece of technology would take on the name the Gravity Gun. With Eli researching gravity in Black Mesa East, within City 17, Dr. Isaac Kleiner had been working on a teleporter that would allow quick travel between the City 17 and Black Mesa East bases. Working through the years, Eli and Isaac had created two teleporters that would allow transportation between them using the leftover Zenium relay point on Zen as a sort of slingshot to aid the teleporting process. It is said that at one point during its construction, Isaac had attempted to experiment with the teleporter using a cat, but this did not go very well. The details of this were kept secret and would haunt Barney Calhoun's dreams for years. As the Resistance continued to scavenge and find new ways to defend their settlements, they stole Combine technology and adapted it to work for their needs. They were able to steal turrets as a defense mechanism, thumpers to keep the antlions of the coast at bay, and hopper mines to strike at the Combine forces when they came for them. In the Outlands, alongside Dr. Magnuson's team researching the super portal technology of the Combine, they had also captured various Combine creatures that had found their way to the White Forest base. Here, they were able to study and experiment with them. With this study, the scientists were able to explore new defenses that could aid the resistance in the future. One of these defenses would come in the form of the Magnusson device, a bomb that when attached to a strider would explode and kill the dangerous creature with ease. With each resistance base having a sort of leader, some bases trained their soldiers in the weaponry they had discovered across the Wasteland. At the new Little Odessa resistance base, Colonel Odessa Cubbage was shown to train his team on how to fire the newly acquired RPGs to strike the flying creatures within the Combine ranks. The resistance, although still mostly working in secret in the shadows, were getting much stronger every day and would soon be ready for a war. As the resistance could not, for the most part, fight in the open with the Combine, they could only work in the shadows to take their small victories by sabotaging their activities, stealing their technologies, and infiltrating their ranks. As their work had begun to become more noticed by the Combine, the dominating force struck back with force in any opportunity they were given. One of these was Ravenholm. As the Combine had discovered that the abandoned mining town of Ravenholm had been adapted into a resistance base, they decided to use a new attack to remove this threat. Through their experiments, the Combine had discovered that the headcrab species from the border world of Zen would make great biological weapons if used correctly. With this, they constructed headcrab shells that had the ability to hold many headcrabs in a container. Now held in this container, they could launch it into a location of their choosing. With this, they bombarded Ravenholm with headcrab shells and left the resistance members to their fate. As the shells landed, the members were overwhelmed and overrun by the sudden infestation. The resistance members fell one by one, some becoming attached to the headcrabs and others murdered by the people they had once fought with, now infected by their parasitic hosts. With Ravenholm having fallen and now seen as a liability to the resistance, Black Mesa East, still secret from the Combine's eye, sealed their tunnels to Ravenholm and left the members within to their dark fate. While the resistance had now taken over vast portions of the Wasteland and could defend themselves fairly well, their scattered nature and limited numbers still meant that the Combine could overwhelm them regardless of their newly learned combat training. The fall of Ravenholm was a major blow for the resistance, but they had survived much worse and would continue to fight for their freedom. All they needed was a spark to bring all of the members together to reclaim their planet and take down the Combine once and for all. With Eli Vance and Judith Mossman running research at Black Mesa East, Dr. Arne Magnusson exploring superportal technology in White Forest, Dr. Isaac Kleiner learning as much as he could about the Combine in City 17 and the various bases fighting the good fight on a daily basis in the Wasteland, the return of a lost Black Mesa scientist would make waves in the resistance movement. Now approximately 20 years after the Combine invasion of planet Earth, Gordon Freeman was pulled out of the void he had been trapped in since the Black Mesa incident by the G-Man and his employers, and placed on a train entering City 17. As the train arrived, Gordon departed and discovered the state of the planet and the New World hierarchy that had been put in place since his absence. He observed the Combine rule and how humanity had conformed to the dominating force. With Gordon wandering around the train station searching for an exit, Barney Calhoun happened to be working on the other side of the station, working a shift undercover as a civil protection agent. Recognizing Gordon from their working relationship at Black Mesa and aware that he essentially was the symbol for the resistance, he stops Gordon from boarding a train to Nova Prospekt and leads him to safety out of the monitored Combine area. Now in a secure location, Barney initiates a call with Isaac Kleiner and, together, the resistance members put together a plan to get Gordon from the train station over to the secret resistance base. On his way, Gordon is aided by Alex Vance, where she leads him to Isaac Kleiner's lab. Now reacquainted with his old friend, Isaac informs the Black Mesa East resistance base that Gordon has returned, and with this, They attempt to use the teleporters that they have been working on through these years to transport both Alex and Gordon there safely. After successfully sending Alex through, the process of sending Gordon malfunctions as Lamar, Eli's pet headcrab, comes into contact with the machinery, causing it to fail. While the teleporter did fail in what the initial plan was, it did teleport Gordon, but not to the right place. Through his teleportation, Gordon finds himself briefly within the office of Dr. Wallace Breen, who recognizes him instantly. Still in the teleportation process, Gordon is pulled back into the region of Isaac's lab and lands himself outside of his window. With Breen recognizing Gordon, he informs his Combine advisor, understanding that Gordon could be a huge problem for the Combine occupation of the planet. With this, the Combine go into a high alert mode, sending out their units with the aim to capture Gordon. Now, the true war between humanity and the alien force would begin. With a plan to meet with Eli Vance in Black Mesa East, Gordon uses the Underground Railroad to make his way through City 17 and its canals. Unfortunately, with Gordon now known to the Combine and with him being seen as a huge problem, the mass Combine forces searching for him follow his trail. After every sighting of him, the alien empire strikes the regions hard, hoping to wipe out Freeman. This meant that through his journey of the Underground Railroad, the bases that had been set up to safely escort the refugees out of the city were discovered and destroyed one by the Combine. The closer Gordon got to Black Mesa East, the more settlements of the railroad fell. While this initially would have appeared to be a huge blow to the resistance, the arrival of Gordon had strengthened the spirit of its members, while to the Combine, he was anti-Citizen 1. Waiting within Black Mesa East, Eli and Judith are happy to see Gordon arrive, but unfortunately, shortly after his arrival, the Combine become aware of Black Mesa East, and just like they had done with the Underground Railroad, they attacked and took over the once extremely important base to the Resistance in an attempt to capture Gordon. To his luck, Gordon escapes this invasion through the sealed-off tunnels to Ravenholm. Within the base, the Combine captures both Eli Vance and Judith Mossman. This capture would hit the Resistance hard, not only for the loss of one of the Resistance leaders, but also as it would stop the vital work that Eli and his team were doing within the base. On Gordon's journey, he is continuously aided by the Resistance members along his route. Eventually, he and Alex meet up within Nova Prospekt with the intent to save Eli, who had been sent here after being captured. Through a fight with the Combine soldiers within, and after discovering Judith to be a double agent, Gordon and Alex are unable to save Eli, but their escape from the prison makes much more of an impact on the Resistance agenda. Using a malfunctioning teleporter, the duo escape the facility as it explodes, presumably destroying all within. With the teleporter having malfunctioned during this moment, Alex and Gordon become stuck in a slow time warp, where they land within Dr. Isaac Kleiner's lab 1 week later. During this week, the Resistance had taken the destruction of Nova Prospekt, one of the Combine's most protected and feared locations, as a sign to rise up and begin the Uprising. And with this, they did. While Gordon's journey through the Wasteland had resulted in the majority of the Resistance bases and settlements being overrun by the Combine, this uprising had pushed all of the Resistance forces to openly fight with the Combine. Over this week, City 17 had slowly been taken over by the Resistance, where they were able to recruit many of the now free citizens to join the cause. With fewer Combine units guarding the city, and with Combine machinery sabotaged by Resistance members, the Xenian lifeforms were able to enter the city without the restrictive measures that the Combine had put in place. With Gordon's return, he met up with Barney Calhoun and led a charge to the Citadel, taking over the city piece by piece. With this defiance, the Combine sent out their forces to contain the problem, but humanity fought back harder. With Barney and the Resistance continuing to take down the remaining Combine forces within the city, Gordon entered the Citadel. Within, Gordon managed to not only rescue Eli, Alex, and even Judith, but he also managed to destroy the dark fusion reactor on top of the Citadel, as Dr. Wallace Breen had attempted to communicate with the Combine. With this reactor destroyed, It resulted in the presumed death of Wallace as well as a meltdown of the Citadel. Having escaped City 17, Eli and Isaac had travelled to the White Forest Resistance base, where it became the last known standing Resistance base. And here, the surviving members of City 17 came together on a journey there. As the Resistance members here set up their defences to fight any Combine units that came for them, Isaac and Eli communicated to Gordon and Alex that the destruction of the Citadel would level the city and anything within. As Gordon and Alex attempted to slow down this process, Barney and the remaining Resistance members within the city tried to round up all of the refugees onto trains to evacuate the city towards White Forest. On a mission to the north to acquire the coordinates of the Combine homeworld, Judith is attacked by Combine forces. Luckily, Judith had acquired these coordinates as well as discovering information on the Borealis, a lost ship with amazing potential that could help the Resistance in the future. Successful in slowing down the process of the Citadel's destruction and discovering not only a transmission with Judith's discoveries in the north and the coordinates of the Combine homeworld, but they had also found out that the Combine planned to use the destruction of the Citadel to activate the formation of a superportal. After acquiring this information, Alex and Gordon successfully escaped City 17 as it was destroyed by the Citadel's inevitable destruction. With Gordon and Alex on the way, Arne, Eli, and Isaac worked on a rocket using the research they had studied about superportals over the previous years. As the destruction of City 17 had begun the formation of a superportal, Arne believed that by sending through a relay device within a rocket, it would close the portal before it could fully mature. This would stop the Combine from sending through reinforcements and strand the remaining forces on Earth, ready to be taken out by the Resistance. Hard at work, the leaders of the Resistance continued to work on the rocket, now simply needing the coordinates of the Combine homeworld to program the relay to close the superportal on impact. To their luck, Gordon and Alex arrived at the base with the codes. Now, a victory was in the Resistance's grasp. Preparing to send off the rocket, the Resistance is attacked by the Combine, and the Battle of White Forest begins. Having fought for decades against the Combine at this point, the Resistance came together as one to not only defend the base, but to defend the rocket that held their future inside it. In a tough fight, the members of this movement successfully took down the Striders and the Combine units that invaded the base, using all of the skills, weaponry, armor, and knowledge they had gathered over the years. With this victory, they were ready to fire the rocket. Within the control room, Arne, Eli, Alex, Gordon, and Isaac launch the rocket and watch as it hits the forming superportal. Within close proximity to the portal, the Resistance leaders activate the relay device within the closing portal, where it closes the portal, stranding the remaining Combine forces on Earth, ready to be picked off one by one by the strong Resistance of humanity. After approximately 2 decades of working together to form a strong resistance, this movement could finally see a bright future for humanity. Although the structure of the Resistance and their settlements had been destroyed in a matter of weeks due to Gordon's journey, this sacrifice had given them their shot at the powerful alien empire. With the super portal closed, the Combine can only wait to find another way to access planet Earth. But with some pretty powerful units still on the planet, the fight ahead will still be tough. With plans for the future, and with new potential technology to aid in their endeavors, not everyone will make it. But after 20 years of fighting, the Resistance is aware that this movement to save humanity will still require the mourning of those they love, patience, and sacrifice. That was the lore behind the Resistance in Half-Life. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like and a comment on your thoughts. If you really liked it, then go ahead and subscribe. I know you've already watched a couple of videos by now, so why not subscribe and get notified when I post? If you would like to stay up to date with everything I get up to outside of YouTube, then go and follow my Twitter and Instagram. I also stream on both YouTube and Twitch every Thursday, where we are currently playing through Fallout New Vegas and the Dark Pictures Man of Medan. The link is in the description if you are interested. Finally, I would like to thank my patrons who are helping to support the channel. I really appreciate you. Thanks to The Old Gods, Detroit, Avi WV, Arco, Brunette Jonas, and Jojo Scotia, and an extra special thank you to the Elder Ones tier, Scruffshroom, Jonas, Lewis, and Queen Abby. Thank you guys so much. As Half-Life Alyx is likely in another timeline, I decided not to include Russell in this video, as he is never mentioned during the other Half-Life games, and with Eli's capture and Alyx's employment, it just did not fit well into the timeline in general. Also at this point, it seems that the mass consensus is that Half-Life Alyx takes place in another universe. What did you think of this lore video? The formation of the resistance and the core value of each resistance base was something I had completely overlooked until the research section of this video. Even now, after creating Half-Life videos for over a year, I'm still learning. I ask you, who is your favourite resistance member? If we do get another Half-Life game set during the Uprising, do you think the resistance will win? And finally, would you rather live as a civilian trapped under the control of the Combine, or would you put your life at risk to join the resistance? Let me know below. If you have any suggestions for future Half-Life lore videos, please let me know. I do have a long list to get through. The next few I'm thinking are Black Mesa, the Quarantine Zone, and maybe remaking the Barney video, as I made that a while back. It was about 5 minutes, and my editing style has massively changed at this point. Again, any suggestions are welcome for future videos. I do tend to grab the future videos from your comments. That was everything I wanted to cover in this episode. Now, Resistance member, enjoy your day. Bye.